Has been actually about 2 hours of effort just on that. So hopefully I am on the downhill from here. I know that I just cursed myself by saying that right now. Welcome to Dirt, Sweat, and Gears, and I got a special episode for you today. I am taking a break from working on my broken down hoopties to work on someone else's broken down hoopty. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me either. Now this is a 2000 Toyota Tundra. It belongs to my dad's lifelong friend, Craig. If you've been following the series, quick recap. After my dad passed away earlier this year, Craig shows up to my house and asked me to follow him up the street to show me that he has my grandmother's 1976 Camaro Rally Sport. So Craig tells me he wants me to have this car. So I told him I wanted to earn this car. So we brought in his 1992 Honda Accord wagon. Really cool wagon. I did the fuel pump on it, got it running again. It is running and driving, and I think he's just waiting on the registration sticker for it now. So really cool to get that car back on the road. Now he's brought me my second project. This is his 2000 Toyota Tundra, and it needs a completely new front suspension. So while I was working on the Accord, one of the front ball joints broke while he was pulling out of the driveway. And so after fixing that ball joint, I told him, why don't I go ahead and replace all the ball joints and the tie rod ends and the shocks and springs and the brakes. So he brought over some brakes. I bought the rest of the suspension parts. So at that point, he just needed to be able to live without this truck for a few days while I got to work. And so now it's here, and we're going to do the suspension on it and the brakes. And hopefully that will open the door to getting this Camaro. Now, to be perfectly clear, this Camaro, while it was my grandmother's car, it is, at the end of the day, still his car. He could choose to not give it to me. He could, he could ghost me entirely. I don't think he will, but it's really important to set reasonable expectations. Anything could happen, but I am, at the end of the day, really happy to be able to work on this and to be able to share this with you guys, regardless of the outcome. It is still quite an amazing story to be able to tell. So at the end of the day, even if it doesn't pan out to a happy ending, it's still a really great story, and I'm really happy to bring you along for the ride. So let's get this thing in the garage and start showing you what I'm going to do to it. So I got the truck mostly in the garage. The front and back wheels are in. We're up on a jack stand. It's pretty safe-ish. And let's take a look at what we got here. So we've got brakes that are, well, these are warped rotors. You could tell from driving it. So we're going to replace the rotors and calipers. Craig got slotted and drilled rotors and ceramic pads. So we're going to replace the rotors and pads. So I am going to have to pull the caliper off. We've got ball joints that, well, yeah, they're ready to go. Tie rod end is ready to go. The lower ball joint is brand new. I just put that on a month ago on the side of the road. And we can see that the shock is blown. Plenty of oil spilling out of that shock. The brake pads that were given to me to put on this car are too big. So I had to go and get a set from O'Reilly. I'm sure I spent 20 bucks just for the packaging here. This is by far the nicest box of brake pads I've ever seen, but they are the correct size. They are also ceramic, so I will not have any problems putting these back in. They also come with the springs, so I'm really happy it comes with new springs. I did manage to get the new shock and coil assembly in. This all came as one unit, so I just popped the old one out and put the new one in. It sounds easy, but in practice, it was very much not as easy as it should have been. Reason why is because this bolt up here in the back is really hard to get to. I could only get to it with a short wrench. Where are we? You see my very well organized set of tools here. Here it is. I could only get to it with my short wrench, only in one specific spot, and it looks like, okay, here we are. Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to run this thread down in order to even be able to get this wrench around the new one, because the posts are so much longer. Yep, but I will be able to get the new wrench on here. So when it was tight, I could only get it here, and then I had to put an extension on here, kind of do this trick here, and then because it was at kind of an angle, it would slip off, and I damn near stripped the nut. So that was kind of scary, but it's all done now, so I'm really happy about that. And what else did I encounter? I also did the tie rod end. There's no real problems here other than me being a really, really, really smart guy. You see here, I had the ball joint removal tool on here, and I had the ball joint removal tool behind the tie rod end, and I was going to go to separate it, and every time I would hit it with the impact, it would torque that way. So being the genius that I am, I thought, why don't I just hold this thing here with my hand while I hit it with the impact wrench? Because there's no way that 1,000 foot-pounds of impact torque is going to, you know, cause any damage to, like, I don't know, my hand or anything. Yeah, it split my thumbnail. It really hurts. I might lose my thumbnail. So, yeah, don't do that. I ended up putting, Jesus Christ. I ended up putting a wrench behind it so that I could kind of hold it. I used one of the longer ones so that I could hold it as it torqued, just so I could hold it from slipping off. Yeah, that was great. I also had to remove the brake caliper because there's a hard line on here, and I'm not terribly thrilled about that, because that means I'm going to have to bleed the brakes, but at least it's going to have nice fresh brake fluid. So other than that, this already has a new lower ball joint, so once I remove this upper and get the new one on, this will be ready to go back together. I got the new components back together. The shock is in, bolted up. The upper ball joint is bolted up with the cutter pin. The tie rod end is there. The sway bar is reconnected. And everything is back together. The only thing I have left to do is to put the new brakes into the caliper, put the caliper on, and then give it a bleed on this side. The upper ball joint was kind of a pain in the ass, but I got this tool over here, the ball joint press kit from O'Reilly or AutoZone or any number of those part stores will let you borrow this tool. You always want to borrow it because it's really easy to damage the threads on the thing, so just keep that in mind. Don't bother buying it. So I got that pressed in with the press kit and my impact gun. You really do need an impact. You can't do it without it. And so now that that's all together, we just have to do this brake and we can move on to the other side. And we're done. Got the brake on, got the caliper on, brakes are bled, everything's torqued down. Obviously, that's not how the wheel goes on the car. We're going to be putting that on next. And the whole concept of taking it apart and putting it right back together, just like I had done on the driver's side, seems like a pretty simple concept. But you know, this is Dirt, Sweat, and Gears, and this is me working on cars. Simple things have to turn into the worst thing I've ever had to deal with. I have never had a tie rod end be as stuck as this thing is. I don't know what's going on. It's like it's welded on there or something. I don't know what to do about this. I honestly don't know. I've been beating the hell out of it with that mallet for a good hour and a half. I even used this 20-pound sledgehammer. My tool that I have specifically for doing this Yeah, it shot itself out like a missile. It just like I had to have put about 1,000 pound-feet of torque with this with this here tool, and it just yeeted itself across the garage. So yeah, and I think the tool is bent now. Yeah, the tool is bent. So yeah, I'm this is bad. This is really bad. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I may take the entire knuckle off and then twist the tie rod end off and take the whole knuckle with that bullshit tie rod end out to a shop to deal with, because this is a mess. I don't know what to do about this. I could, if I did that, I could try putting it under my 20-ton press and then break the press and probably hurt myself. That's always an option. Right now, I think today I'm going to beat on it for probably, beat it. I'm probably going to keep hitting on it for about another 10 minutes before I give up. My elbow is really, really hurting. So if I can't get this thing off in the next 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to let it soak in that penetrating oil overnight and give it a try tomorrow, because this is way more difficult than it needs to be. It really is. One of the things I did was I had to position the wheels. So first thing I did was I had to take this off, because with it in its natural position, which is like over here, I was just bending the dust shield too much. And even bending the dust shield, I wasn't getting enough leverage to get the angle I needed. So I detached it, spun it around so the caliper cutout was here. And then I turned the wheels so that when my pickle fork was in there, let's just see if I can mock this up without making it stuck for the next 10,000 years. So it was like that, basically. And so when my pickle fork was in there, I needed an angle where my pickle fork could just go all the way through without hitting anything. And I think once I got that, it was that angle from turning the wheels just right and repositioning this dust shield. Once I got that all in, it was really just a slow burn to getting this thing farther and farther and farther. And so I was having a lot of trouble. My elbow, my wrist is hurting. This just, at some point I switched over to the big hammer again so that I could just kind of golf swing it. You know what I mean? I could keep my back straight and really a much less effort to get some kinetic energy. And then it just kept going. And so eventually it popped off, and I shouted hallelujah, even though I'm an atheist, because I was that happy. This has been actually about 2 hours of effort just on that. So hopefully I am on the downhill from here. I know that I just cursed myself by saying that right now. But let's keep moving on this. And there you have it. I'm done. I got the passenger side done. Everything's on. Bled the brakes. Thanks to my wife for the help. I think the truck actually sits taller. I'm sure it does if those old springs were sagging. But actually, this could be a great truck. And then here's the driver's side. You don't notice it as much. So I am running out of daylight. We got to get this thing out for a test drive. Let's get going. I wonder if the brake light is just on because the switch is bad. The switch for the parking brake. Now here's a guy going 60 up the street. Cool story, bro. I am not used to driving large vehicles. Okay. Okay, the alignment is way off on this thing. It was not happy about making that tight turn. I did torque both sides of the lug nuts. Something's happening. Something bad's happening. That explains it. The toe is way in on the passenger side. Like, it doesn't want to go anywhere. It might be worth trying to adjust this in the garage, but I'm not doing that today. I need... Oh, that is bad, though. Okay, well, the camera fell, so I decided to just bring it back home. I didn't go very far. I didn't even get half a block. It turns out... let's see if I can just show you. Okay, you see how this wheel is mostly straight? The other wheel, it's kind of hard to tell, but it is most definitely turned in. These two wheels want nothing to do with each other, and I think that's what my problem is. It's a lot harder to notice in the dirt because, well, it's dirt. But when I get on the street, I'm feeling this side just it hates me. So I need to get this thing back in the garage, readjust the toe on this wheel so that it's a little more out, because it's too far in. It's completely undrivable. And then hopefully, if I can get it tolerable, I can make it to the alignment shop, which is not far. I just don't like things sliding and popping underneath me. So I got the truck back from the alignment shop, and I got some really bad news. The suspension alignment went fine. Everything went great. However, there was a major problem with the steering rack, and really, basically, this is a common wear and tear thing, from what I understand. I've looked it up and verified it. This truck basically needs a new steering rack. So before we go take it out for a drive, let's go take a look underneath, and so I can show you what's happening. And then we'll come back up and take it for a drive. So you see I have the flashlight pointed right at the rack itself. And now I'm going to turn the wheel. When I turn it, you can see the rack shifting back and forth. And that causes a whole lot of stability problems. Okay, let's take it for a drive. I have the camera mounted over here just so that you can see just how much I'm turning the wheel in order to stay straight. So I'm just backing out for now. I have to keep an eye out for the parade of idiots every time I pull out. All right. And when I turn the wheel sharp, I can feel the whole truck shifting underneath me. That's actually what concerns me the most. And just to go straight, you see how much I'm turning the wheel. And then coming to a stop, it's almost at a quarter turn just to stop straight. And so I turn, I feel the whole thing shifting back and forth. And now the wheel's at a completely different orientation to go straight. All right, so let's get this thing out of the way. We're going to continue working on it for a bit. Well, I'm underneath the truck, and I am miserable and terrified. That's why I've got two sets of jack stands. I got the jack stands, and I got backup jack stands. If this thing falls, it won't crush me. So I'm looking closer at this rack, and I'm really seeing no indication that this rack is hosed. It actually looks just fine aside from the bushings. So the bushings are obviously trash, but the bellows are still healthy. None of the lines are leaking. There's nothing to indicate that this rack needs to be replaced. So I am going to try to replace the bushings, which is this one here, that one here, and that one there. I'm sure it's going to be 50 times as difficult as it should be because I'm on the ground and it's freezing ass cold and I am claustrophobic. But I think I can make this work. Well, this whole operation wasn't that bad. It was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. The worst thing that I had going for me was it's really cold. When I started this project, it was literally freezing outside. So I just kind of took it easy until it warmed up. And then once it warmed up, I was actually making really good progress. Some interesting things to note. The bushings I used were actually Dorman. They're the OEM replacement that you would get from O'Reilly. And they are polyurethane. So there's no real need to waste your money on prothane or energy suspension unless you really are building a trophy truck and you have an unlimited budget. There's really no reason to get anything other than the cheapest polyurethane you can find. The pressing out the old bushings I thought was going to be a nightmare, but I actually was able to just tap it out with a hammer and a socket extension. So it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And I'll be sure to link the video that I watched to help me kind of get pumped up for this project. It was really just that bolt there, and that C-clamp there. That's it. Then I was able to maneuver the rack around just by using kind of a pry bar. It did pop the get out of position on the tie rods, so it got a little bit weird when I was trying to put it back in, but just a little bit careful maneuvering, a little bit of glove tapping here and there. Don't beat on it because you don't want to ruin the rack, but you can give it a little nudge here and there, and I got it back into place. I had read that the torque specs on the little bolts were 123 pound-feet, and the torque spec on the big one, the 22 millimeter on the left, was 96. I got to go back to the gym because I couldn't make it click. I was pushing the torque wrench until I felt like I was about to pop a blood vessel. So I know I got it close. I just didn't get it to click. I think it's going to be okay. I did pop a couple of them with the impact wrench, just a couple of, like a quarter turn beyond that. So I'm pretty sure I am at least very close to torque spec. I think it's going to be okay. Next thing we need to do is go take it for a test drive. The toe is definitely off. But overall, it feels much better. I mean, even if eventually the rack does need to be replaced, definitely does not need to be replaced right now. Yeah, the alignment needs to be rechecked. He said he would do it for free, which is really good news. So tomorrow, I'll give him a call. Tomorrow, I'll drop it off with him and let him do his thing. Alright, well, I know this is going to be a little confusing that I'm talking about the truck and driving the Prelude, but we're still talking about the truck. We have a new development with the truck. The alignment actually was not good. What happens is you're driving and you hit a bump and the truck just kind of wants to wander around, doesn't know what to do when it encounters any kind of bump, and that has always been an alignment problem. So to backtrack a little bit, he had done the alignment and then told me that the steering rack was bad and that the steering rack had to be replaced. In fact, he kept saying steering gear, which at the time I thought was a little bit weird, but I thought, well, whatever, he may not be the brightest bulb in the box, so I just thought, okay. But it was definitely the bushings. There was nothing wrong with the rack. You saw it, I saw it, I showed you. There was really nothing wrong with the rack itself, just the bushings. So I replaced the bushings, and just like I showed you, now it turns back and forth just fine. but when it hits bumps, it just kind of goes all over the place. So what that tells me is that he did an alignment on a truck with suspension parts that were moving around. Who would have thought that, you know, the steering rack shifts back and forth, you can't get a proper alignment. So I went back and asked him, I said, hey, look, I replaced the bushings. Can you please check the alignment again? And he says, no, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. And I'm like, bro, the toe is going to be off. If you turn the steering wheel one way and the whole rack shifts the other way, something's going to be off. And then all he does for me is he turns the steering wheel and says, see, I turned two and a half turns this way, 2.5 turns that way, and it's fine. It doesn't need to be aligned. And I'm just thinking, like, that's not what an alignment is. That's just centering the steering wheel. So I asked him again, you know, I tried to explain to him, look, the toe is going to be wrong because if it was moving back and forth when you were turning the wheel, you're not going to get correct angles. So then, after I explained this to him, he says, I told you yesterday that you needed to change your lower control arms, that your lower control arm bushings were bad. And I said, no, you didn't. You said my steering rack was bad. He says, no, I said lower control arms. So then he hops in the truck, moves it forward a few inches, hits the brakes, and when it squeaks, he says, you hear that noise? That's the bushing shifting back and forth. You need new lower control arms. The lower control arms are bad. And I said, that's just squeaking bushings. And at that point, I knew what he was doing. He had my money, and he didn't want to do any work for free. So I just said, okay, you know what? It's fine. I'll go take care of that, whatever. Got in the truck, took off. And I'm driving away, and I'm thinking, this is really kind of silly. You know, you've all been on this journey with me. I'm kind of an idiot, but I know when I'm being bullshitted. You know, that just really goes to show you how slimy and corrupt some mechanics are. Because, you know, most mechanics, I like to think most mechanics, when I talk to them about the work that I did and about how much I know about this car, they would think twice before bullshitting me. But not this guy. And so I think really that's the main takeaway here, is that no matter how much you know about a subject, no matter how much you know about cars, there's mechanics out there that are going to try to bullshit you and try to pull one over on you. And in this case, it happened. I shouldn't have given my money if suspension parts were moving around. I mean, that's my lesson learned. But he obviously doesn't stand by his work, and you know, that's unfortunate for him, because I have 6 cars. 5 of them need an alignment. That place was in walking distance from my house, so it was really convenient, and he would have gotten a lot of money out of me if he had just done honest work. But that's not how it is with some people, and that is very unfortunate. I'm out $150, but you know what? He is out a good couple of thousand, because I have a bunch of cars that I am not sending his way, and I know a lot of people that I am not sending his way. So I got a little carried away and separated this before recording this video. But take a look at this tie rod end. Notice where it is and how it's oriented. Let's walk on over to the other side. This is the other side. Notice how it's oriented? That's right, kids. The opposite direction. The driver's side tie rod end was on upside down. So before I switch this rack out, like everyone's telling me to, I'm going to switch this over and see if it is the cause of my problems, because it very well could be, and I definitely want to find out before I effectively spend that money. Let's see if I made a dumb but at the end of the day benign mistake. I'm gonna wait for the parade. Just backing up out of the driveway, it already feels much better. It's like less bouncing around. It's still loosey-goosey, but I think that's kind of normal. It's like my Jeep. Okay, the steering wheel is off. That's unfortunate. That does mean I do have to take it to the alignment shop. But it really does feel better. Okay, so I am going to have to take it to the alignment shop because the toe could be off, but also the steering wheel is off center. So I kind of want to make sure that's done correctly. But this really does feel much better. Let's return this rack and then go down to the shop. They're gonna enjoy hearing this one. So I took the truck back to the alignment shop after I flipped the tie rod end over to be in the right orientation, and immediately it was already driving better. So I took it back to the shop. They realigned it. I took it to a different shop though. Not the guy that was bullshitting me. Yeah, he did a great job on it. The truck drives really, really well now. You can just like seriously charge over bumps and speed bumps, and it's really confident. It's a really solid truck now. So I gave it back to him, and he seemed really happy with it. So you know, we hung out for a little bit and just talking about things. We did talk a little bit about the Camaro, and he said to me, you know, I know what that Camaro is worth when it's fixed up, so I got a few more projects coming your way, and we're gonna do some great things. So I hope that means that we're gonna have a little bit of fun. I do want to have fun. I do want to do some cool projects with him. I like Craig. You know, he's lived a hell of a life. He has lived a very interesting life, so he's got some great stories, and you know, I do like working on this stuff, so it also makes great content for you guys. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video. It turned out to be a lot more than I expected, but it was still, like I said, great content for you guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and share whatever links I can in the description below. Anything that helped me along the way here. If you like what you see, like, share, subscribe, comment. If you don't like what you see, maybe you run a sketchy alignment shop and don't like being called out. Either way, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. I'll see you next week.